Hello everyone, my name is Isaac from the Innovation Consortium, and today I would like to share with you about shafts, what they are, the different types, what they are used for, and the specification. To start with, I'll briefly define the basic definition of a shaft. A shaft is just a cylindrical rod used to transmit motion or power in machines. To clarify on that, before it becomes a shaft or before it transmits motion, it's just a rod, a cylindrical rod, and it's called a round bar. As I'm going to be showing you an example of a round bar. When purchasing, you purchase a round bar, then you machine the features, you make it a shaft. I'll be showing you an example of a round bar. With me here, we are having a round bar, and this is stainless steel. It's a round bar, stainless steel round bar, before it becomes a shaft. So before it becomes a shaft, it's a round bar. After ascertaining the different features for it to run in the machine, then it becomes a shaft. So basically, ideal, I think now you understand what a shaft is. It's a round bar with features, or a cylindrical rod with features, which is used to transmit motion in machines actually, or to transmit motion basically. To talk about the different types of shafts, the difference comes in the material of the shaft, the size, and very many other features, or even the purpose it serves. So the difference comes in the material, it comes in the features, and the purpose the shaft serves. To start with, I'll start with the material in which shafts are being made. Shafts can be made from low carbon steel, they can be made from stainless steel, they can be made from mild steel, they can be made from plastic, they can be made from brass, depending on the load and depending on the physical properties you want that shaft to achieve. It could be corrosion resistance, there we can go for the stainless shaft. It could be wear resistance, you can go for the medium carbon steel shafts, and so on and so forth. So depending on the features or the properties you need from the shaft, it could be a bearing material you need, there you can use a plastic. It could be the load you're transmitting, or the load in the transmission. If it's a higher load, there you can go for high carbon steels, or you can go for medium carbon steels, you can go for stainless steel, because for them they are able, or they are compatible with higher loads, or transmitting power to higher loads. So basically, those are the materials, or the different types of materials we use to make shafts or drive shafts. The other difference we talked about, it could be in the purpose the shaft serves. There is the transmission, and most shafts are transmission shafts. And today basically we are going to be talking about the transmission shafts. But to talk about the other types of shafts, transmission aside, transmission is the first type of the shaft we have, the transmission shaft. We have the axle shaft, we have the spindle shafts, and so on and so forth. So transmission shafts, we have the cam shafts, we have the crank shafts, we have the axle shafts, and very many other types of shafts. But today we shall be concentrating much more on the transmission shafts. And on my table, we have in these components, and all of them are transmission shafts, apart from the one I showed you, which is the blank, which is the round bar, but the rest of them are transmission shafts. Why transmission shafts? From the definition, they transmit motion or power from the drive to the driven end. Take for instance, this is a round bar, if you can see it from this end, but if I rotate it, you look at the features on this round bar. These are keyways, and these keyways, they act as interlocks to what is being driven to transfer the motion to the driven end actually. So we are having a round bar with the features which are keyways, and the keyways adapt. It could be a sprocket, it could be a pulley, then it transmits the motion to the driven end. So we are having a shaft. For example, I have a sprocket here with me. The shaft is having a keyway, and the keyway, it's where we place our pulley. It's where we place our sprocket. Then once it's having a power source, take for instance a motor. The motor will be driving the pulley, maybe with the help of a belt or with the help of a chain maybe. Then the shaft will be moving, it transmits the motion, then the motion will be rotating the sprocket to ascertain the power we are talking about, or the rotary motion we are talking about. So basically that's how a shaft works. But before I went in to talking about how a shaft works, we are talking about the different types of shafts actually. And the transmission shaft in particularly, it's what we are defining, or it's what we are talking about. So basically that's how the transmission happens. You're having a drive one side. Take for instance, we are having a drive this side. It could be a pulley or a chain this side. Then it rotates the shaft with the features. These are the keyways, are the features on the shaft. Then the keyways will act as the interlock to accommodate the sprocket as we rotate, as the power source rotates the shaft. We are getting the rotary motion on the sprocket. Then the sprocket might run the chain or anything else. So basically that's how the transmission happens. So a shaft moves hand in hand with transmission of power or rotary motion. That's why I had to explain about the rotary motion or the transmission of power. So after knowing the different types of shafts, we shall be talking about the specification actually of shafts, how we specify them, and the specification comes with the diameters, the difference in the sizes of the shafts. To talk about the specification, after knowing the different types of shafts, talking about the specification, but slightly before we talk about the specification, I would like to talk about actually what shafts are used for basically. And ideally, the most common use, or the basic use of a shaft is, from the definition, is to transmit motion. As I said earlier on, is to transmit motion. However much I explain more, but the basic use for a shaft is to transmit motion or a rotary motion in machines basically. The other use, that's before it becomes a shaft, and it's still a round bar or a cylindrical rod. They can be used to fabricate other machines, or linear, they could be linear bearings. So ideally, that's the basic importance of the use of a shaft. It's ideally to transmit motion in machines basically. Now talking about the specification of the shafts, and I'll be talking about the specification before it becomes a shaft when it's still a cylindrical rod or a round bar. The specification will come first in the material, the type of the material, but I had explained that one earlier on. And the second specification would be the diameter. And the diameter, if we are to go to the market, we have to measure the diameter using the vernier caliper. We measure the diameter. They always vary in diameters from 25 to bigger diameters. It could be 25, it could be 30, it could be 35, then 40, 50, and so on and so forth. So the difference in sizes, or the specification in sizes, we differentiate it by use of the vernier caliper. You differentiate the different sizes of the shaft. So basically, that's the specification of shafts. It's either the material or the diameter when it's still a cylindrical bar. So basically, that's it for the shafts. Now, talking about the specification, after knowing the basic use of a shaft, as I had said earlier on, it's to transmit motion or to transmit the rotary motion in machines actually. So now I'll be talking about the specification. The specification, it could be in the material. The material I had mentioned earlier on, the different types of material. It could be mild steel, it could be stainless, it could be low-carbon steel, it could be plastic, it could be aluminum, and very many other types of material. So for the specification in the material type, I hope that one is understandable. Then the specification could come in the size, and the size comes in when the shaft is still a round bar before adding on the features of the shaft. When it's a round bar, we can specify in the difference in the size or in the diameter. And with the help of a caliper, if we are to purchase a shaft, take for instance, if I want a shaft of 40 millimeters diameter, we have to use the vernier caliper. Then we measure the size of the shaft we are having. Then you verify that I'm having a 40 millimeter diameter shaft. So they come in various diameters. It could be 25, it could be 30, it could be 40, 45, 32, 50, 52. So they are in different sizes, or they vary in sizes. So that's another specification. It's the size. And the other one, the other specification, it could be where it's going to be used actually. It could be an axle shaft, it could be a spindle shaft, it could be a crankshaft. So depending on where it's being used, that's how we specify the different types of shafts. So basically for the shafts, briefly that's it. That's what I can explain about shafts. So I remain Isaac from the Innovation Consortium. Thank you very much.